Hello there, Commonwealth Realm here. It looks more and more likely that Nintendo will reveal the new Nintendo Switch model, or Nintendo Switch Pro if you prefer, before E3 2021 in the first week of June. Also that developers can showcase the power of the new model in their games during E3. Originally claimed by insider Emily Rogers on Twitter to release in September or October, this claim has now also been supported by Eurogamer and Bloomberg's Takashi Mochizuki, the man who has reported all the previous Switch Pro details and now has pointed out that a reveal is imminent before E3 and that the system may launch as soon as September. Keep in mind, Bloomberg is not a gaming website reporting any rumor. They are a financial powerhouse, hence they should be taken seriously, as Bloomberg has the most to lose here. Specifically if they are wrong about the start of production in July, when the OLED 720p 7 inches display with minimal bezel will begin to arrive from Samsung, and with it finally being able to combine this one with the new more powerful Nvidia chip and DLSS 2.0 upscaling technology that is in play when the system is docked. And all of this will likely cause a retail price above the $299 of the regular Switch. But what is most shocking is that according to Bloomberg, they're not only introducing a new member to the Switch family of systems, they are also phasing out the 2017 original, which will be replaced by the Pro. The same games will run on both, but the question remains for how long. Bloomberg has also pointed out that only a very select few knows the actual name of the new model. In other words, all indications point to a reveal being imminent, of a potential launch window in September or October. And with it, could we see the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild launch with it? You know, just like the new 3DS XL launched in the West day and date with Majora's Mask 3D in 2015, the Nintendo Switch launched the same day as Zelda Breath of the Wild in March 2017, and Nintendo Switch Lite with Link's Awakening HD in September 2019, thus having the new Zelda released before Pokemon Legends Arceus and its January release. So be sure to press that like button, subscribe and press the bell for many, and I mean many more upcoming Switch Pro and Breath of the Wild 2 videos, because for this specific purpose and more, I sat down with Rogersbase to go over how crucial the Nintendo Switch Pro is for Nintendo's E3 lineup of games and the second half of 2021 and the first half of 2022. So what do you think, Roger?
I feel because we already have manufacturing information about this new Switch model, it's probably going to happen, right? We know this is going to come out within this fiscal year. And so there's not really a lot of time for them to say, okay, here, we have this new revision of the Switch. Yeah, I think the time is now, man. I really think Switch Pro could happen at E3.
Yeah, I also think that is a possibility, and mainly because I think that Nintendo has been holding back the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild for this particular purpose. They want to show the game running at its best, and that's also the perfect moment to showcase which games will be taking advantage of this Samsung OLED and Nvidia DLSS 2.0 upscaling technology. Because which franchises are graphic intensive or demand a lot of power in order to be output in say 1080p, because we see a lot of Switch games that are not able to even reach 1080p. That being specifically the case with Zelda, even 3D Mario, but especially Monolith Soft and the Xenoblade Chronicles games.
Yeah.
But because it is such a hardware leap and it could be the first experience with 4K, and the fact that they might want to dedicate some time to explaining this technology and maybe have some of their partners coming in from Samsung and Nvidia talking about the OLED and talking about the DLSS 2.0 upscaling technology, and then demonstrating it, say, in the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, in the next Monolith Soft game. And that is the type of reveal that convinces people that yes, this is such a leap that makes it so I want to buy a Switch if I don't own it already, and if I have a Switch, I want to upgrade.
You already touched on the point with Zelda, but I think even moving beyond Zelda, right? Like, there were a lot of people that were complaining after that initial trailer of Pokemon Legends Arceus, where they were saying, you know, like the little chingling that was in the background was moving at like 2 FPS and the game looked a little choppy because it was, you know, realistically shown off a little early. But I do feel like maybe if we see a trailer for that, like the big first open world Pokemon game, and you show that running on a Switch Pro and you see the significant difference, I think that could really turn a lot of heads. Pikmin we brought up is a great example of something that I think they've just been waiting on for a while to talk about. and show off. The time is now right with Pikmin 3 Deluxe selling so well. We know there's going to be something Metroid related. We know Monolith Soft is working on their new IP, and we know Zelda Breath of the Wild. That is like one of the locks for the show, is we know we're going to get a Breath of the Wild 2 trailer or some type of news. It might not be good news. There might be a delay until next year, but there's going to be something. And I think with all of those things put together, and on top of that, Donkey Kong, like I think that's a series that maybe not a lot of people would think of when talking about like graphically intensive or really beautiful looking games. But you also have to remember, like, Donkey Kong Jungle Beat was an amazing looking GameCube game. They had like the fur textures of the different Kongs. And I think if they did something like that on the Switch, right, you have this new team working on Donkey Kong that has like these beautiful fur textures and these lush 4K jungles, that could really turn a lot of heads too. So yeah, the opportunity is right there for them to really show off some of these new products and products we've already know about that we just need to see more about. Things like Splatoon 3, Metroid Prime 4, and Breath of the Wild 2, and what they look like on a Switch Pro.
We also can't forget that Donkey Kong 64 used the expansion pack.
Right.
It was sold with the expansion pack for the Nintendo 64.
Right, and Donkey Kong Country, obviously, the original games on Super Nintendo were like revolutionary for the time too, for how they looked. So it's not like, you know, Donkey Kong is unfamiliar with, you know, pushing the limits of the Nintendo systems.
In regards to all the leaks, Bloomberg reports regarding Samsung OLED being in production from June, so pretty much E3, and then being sent for assembly at Nintendo's facilities beginning from late July, because they want to combine Zelda with hardware, which they have been doing now pretty much since 2015. And then it just makes sense for Zelda to be another hardware pusher and seller from the day one for a Nintendo Switch Pro.
Could you imagine a scenario in which, because when does Skyward Sword HD come out?
It's coming out on July 16th.
Could you imagine a scenario where they announce the Switch Pro and it gets released a month later in July and launches alongside Skyward Sword HD? But I think that would have been a huge shock if they were going to do something like that. No, I'm in complete agreement with you though that they're going to tie the Switch Pro with a Breath of the Wild 2. Even if it gets announced here and doesn't end up coming out until the holiday season or March of next year, I think the Switch Pro's launch date determines Breath of the Wild 2's launch date and vice versa.
Yeah, and I think it's a perfect stage to announce it. It is also a place where you can tell shareholders and pretty much the world that the Switch is not going to be discontinued in 2023 or 2024.
Or anytime soon, exactly.
We aim to bring this to 2026. We're going to break all records. It's not 100 million. We're going for PlayStation 2 levels.
And honestly, it's silly that I think people are assuming that the Switch would like die out sometime soon, when, again, people have to consider this is also their handheld, right? Nintendo handheld systems have very long lifespans. It's not like they just burn out after a couple years. And so if we're looking at a hybrid system and a handheld, we're looking at a long life cycle for this. You know, it's going to be longer than the Wii's or N64s or whatever. It's going to be something more in line with, Game Boy Advance or the original Game Boy. And so, I mean, we're working with the Switch for a while. We only had one full generation of Pokemon yet. We're still probably going to get another generation of Pokemon. We're probably going to get another mainline Fire Emblem game. I mean, we're probably going to get a sequel to Mario Odyssey at some point, another Mario Kart. So there's stuff that they could do for years and years down the line. I don't think they're rushing to get to whatever the actual true successor to the Switch is anytime soon.
I don't think they are even thinking that much about it.
No.
Because by reaching upscaled 4K, I think Nintendo's just, okay, we don't need to really go 4K until like 2026. True 4K. Native 4K. Because we already have the games. We already have the technology there. And we are able to continue this record-shattering system for as long as it's humanly possible.
And we're also, not to cut you off, but we're also in a situation in which I feel like we would have known about the Switch Pro already had not happened. And I also feel like because of the stifled first year for Sony and for Microsoft, where specifically Sony's still not able to crank out systems fast enough, right? People still can't get their hands on a PS5. And yet there's also not very many games that are exclusive to PS5 right now that you would absolutely need to have that system for. I feel like there isn't really as much of a rush. And Nintendo can comfortably sort of sit in that mid-generational area, safely knowing that we're probably not going to, be away from PS5 and the new Xbox for a long while.
I think that is also what Nintendo's been thinking about, because 2020 was the big big hardware year for both Sony and Microsoft. But
Right.
Nintendo is going to strike back this year, I think, in 2021.
Right.
They know that they have to send a loud and clear message that the Switch is not anywhere near dying, both when it comes to sales numbers and software output and hardware power, because we have this solution that is going to extend the life of the Switch. And I think a lot of that is going to depend on games like Metroid Prime 4, which could be Metroid 4K, Pikmin 4K, the next Monolith Soft game, and most of all Zelda, the sequel to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And I think that is pretty much what we need to cover about the Nintendo Switch Pro.
Yeah.
The world's attention is going to be on you, and we know that Sony and Microsoft is not going to come with new hardware since they just revealed that last year.
Of course.
So and launched that, of course. So I think that that is the opportunity. So be sure to leave a like, subscribe both to my channel and Rogersbase, and with notification bells on, and qualify for our big 300,000 subscribers giveaway. Finally, a big thanks goes to our patreon.com/CommonRail patrons, and in particular to our royal producer Charles Shash. And please enjoy one or both of these two awesome videos.